What up? I'm Ben Freeman from FREEMAN-PEDIA.com, and this is SAQsDAY. This is where I take some of the released SAQs that are still relevant to the course and break them down with you with a few tricks and tips along the way. Today we go back to 2017. This is as far back as I'm willing to go, because you go any further back than this and you start running into like Roman questions or things get a little odd, like the course is too different now. And this week I hope you brought your spice chart with you, because the reason I'm actually even looking at this one anyway, because it's not a great SAQ, unless your teacher assigned it, and then I think it's great. I think they did a great job. Nice job, teacher. But the reason I bring it up is because it has those categories. These are categories you're going to see a lot in AP World History and AP US History, in all histories. It's kind of a breakdown of historical themes and cultures and all that kind of stuff. In my class, we use a spice chart. I think spice charts are fun. They're not really fun, but it's a good way to kind of organize your thoughts when you're reading a bunch of stuff like, oh, this is talking about this. This is a political thing. This is cultural. Oh, this is about economy. So when you look back, you can kind of break it down, because when they ask you questions on the AP exam, and they will in May, there's going to be something like this: social, political, economic, cultural, right? Those are kind of the big ones. So again, this isn't a great one. This one asks you about a turning point, which, come on, man, what year is this? We're doing turning? That seems like it's such a vague thing, right? A turning point. But this one's actually pretty doable, but that's just a thing where you're like, turning point? Like, that's such a major, I don't know, that kind of just doesn't seem like AP World should be like, know this and this theme and this idea and that kind of thing. And then like, what's a big change, a big turning point throughout? It's kind of a bigger picture thing to do. And I don't know, I think it's kind of super vague. You won't see that anymore. This was from 2017. Nothing has looked like this since then, but at least you could see some of the terminology you're gonna see on this one. So you know the drill. Let's focus the lens. A quick glance at this SAQ, and you can probably tell the A, the B, and the C are nearly identical. The main push here is about industrialization, all that factory stuff back from Unit 5. And they're asking specifically about how industrialization was a turning point, but not just a turning point. How was it an economic turning point? How was it a social turning point? And how was it a political turning point? And again, they don't ask you this way anymore, but you can see on here, identify and explain for each. AP World Classic. Cool. We know what to look for. Now, this is normally where I say, hey, let's check the stimulus and see what you have. But see that number 3 right there? Yeah, no stimuli on question 3 or question 4. So let's just go ahead and answer the prompts. They're not going to ask you this again, but a turning point is essentially something that causes things to be different than they were before. Kind of, after this, things were never the same, right? That's kind of what a turning point is. For A, that means an economic turning point. So how was the economy different after the Industrial Revolution? I go super basic here. How was stuff made? That shift from the domestic system to the factory system. Assembly lines, that drastic shift from producing stuff at home or in a small shop to a streamlined factory, that's a turning point. Even better, that's an economic turning point, so that's gonna get you letter A. As usual, there's more stuff you could have put in here. You could have gone with the new wage laborers, or even how the factories required a massive amount of raw materials from all over the globe, leading to imperialism, whatever. Any of that is good, but I think the factory system, going from your mom sewing a shirt at home over the course of like 2 months to a factory where they're, popping them out left and right, that's a huge economic change. Even better, it's a turning point. For B, they want that political turning point. Political just means what states or leaders are doing. This could be war, this could be expansion, this could be taxes. Whatever the government or empire or state is up to is political. So that last point I mentioned for A would actually work here too. The scramble for Africa, the expansion of the spheres of influence in China by the Europeans and the Americans and the Japanese, those are all prime examples of the governments changing what they were doing because of the Industrial Revolution. Why? Because it's a political turning point. Finally, for C, they want a social change. The Industrial Revolution was a really massive turning point in history. It's up there with the Agricultural Revolution, the Columbian Exchange. Like, it's one of the biggest things that ever happened. It's not just one thing, but it's one of the largest turning points in history, you could say. It's a really, really big deal. You wouldn't really have anything in common with someone before the Industrial Revolution. Maybe some language, maybe some religion, depending on where you're from, but your daily life would look nothing the same. After the Industrial Revolution, much more similar. So it's a really, really big change. It kind of pushes us into the modern world. So it's not crazy they're asking you about the Industrial Revolution and how is it a turning point. It's just the terminology is a little weird. So back for C, one could argue that the social changes were the most drastic. Women in the workplace, new social classes, the divide between management and worker, the new family structure with children in the workplace, women pushing for more equality, the rise of Marxism. If you could identify and explain any of those things, you're probably good to go for letter C. All right, that's the third SAQ on the 2017 AP World History Modern exam. It's a little weird asking you, how is this a turning point in history? But it does use the categories you're gonna need to know. Political, social, economic. If you don't know what either of those three are, know before May, whatever the exam is, I forget. Tired of these old exams with their weak SAQs. Next time, we jump to the 2022 AP World History Modern exam. I'm a big 2022 mark. Love it. For me, it's the GOAT. It's the best. It's the best AP World exam I've seen. But next week's SAQ is a little tricky. It's the one complaint I had after reading the FRQs last year was the SAQ you will see next week. Primarily because there's a word in it that kind of could have thrown people for a loop. Scores are up overall around the country, so that's good news. So maybe they didn't, but for me when I was reading through it, I was like, oh, ooh, that could be tricky. So we'll jump into that SAQ next week. Oh, and it actually has a stimulus. We've been a couple weeks here now, and there's been a stimulus to look at. So I'll see you next SAQs day for the 2022 Canton Factories SAQ.